Where's Melania Trump? She's been absent from Trump's courtrooms and campaign trail, but now she's speaking out in a way that actually hurts him. We'll get into the bombshell she dropped and why it's bad for Trump, starting with a hit she took from Jasmine Crockett.
And since we're talking about integrity, I'm confused as to why my Republican colleagues aren't talking about the lack of integrity when it comes to the president's family's visas. Let me remind y'all that Melania, the First Lady, a model, and when I say model, I'm not talking about Tyra Banks, Cindy Crawford, or Naomi Campbell level, applied for and was given an EB-1 visa. And what that stands for is an Einstein visa. Now, y'all that don't know, let me tell you how you receive an Einstein visa. You're supposed to have some sort of significant achievement, like being awarded a Nobel Peace Prize or a Pulitzer, being an Olympic medalist, or having other sustained extraordinary abilities and success in sciences, arts, education, business, or athletics. Last time I checked, the First Lady had none of those accolades under her belt. It doesn't take an Einstein to see that the math ain't mathin' here.
If you want to see the hypocrisy of the Trump presidency, just look at his family. The grift, the corruption, the profiteering, it's all there. Melania's arrival highlights this, including some ties to Epstein, which leads into the bombshell we'll cover next.
I think that you really notice by her absence is that of Melania, that often men caught up in situations like this have a wife who's loyally standing by their side.
Well,
Melania is nowhere to be seen. Ivanka is nowhere to be seen. This must be a horrifying story for them.
okay, well, two points. She never is by his side. You know, all of those courtroom appearances, did she show up once? You know, I report in my book that one of the aides approached her and she said, "Nice try," and then laughed. But, and this is probably for further food, you know, she was very involved in this Epstein relationship. I mean, there is this model thing, but, you know, and Epstein talks about, you know, and she's introduced by a model agent, both of whom Trump and Epstein are involved with. She's introduced to Trump that way. Epstein knows her well. The first time Donald Trump and Melania have sex is on his airplane. So this is another complicated dimension in this. Where does she fit into the Epstein story? Where does she fit into this?
Unsurprisingly, another Epstein connection in Donald Trump's past. What a shock that is. But we had an idea that there was an introduction with him in Melania. Apparently the first time that they engaged in certain activities I can't talk about, or this video will be suppressed by YouTube, happened on Jeffrey Epstein's plane. Epstein seemed to have a lot of video of Donald Trump, by the way. And more so than just the documents that the DOJ and FBI are terrified of getting out, it's the video that they really keep close to their chest. Probably because there's a lot of criminal video of Donald Trump, but that's for another day. What's for right now is what Melania just said that restarted all of this Epstein craze, and I want to get into it right here. Melania's $1 billion lawsuit threats silence critics, but amplifies Epstein news. A new legal front has opened in the Trump family's never-ending war with the press. And this time, it's First Lady Melania Trump at the center, brandishing an eye-popping $1 billion defamation coup. Her legal team is threatening lawsuits against everyone who dares to do so much as to mention her name in proximity to Jeffrey Epstein's. The fallout has already been swift. The Daily Beast removed an article featuring author Michael Wolff alleging that Donald Trump met Melania through an Epstein connection in the YouTube podcast interview. Wool claims that the two met in 1998 through ID Model's founder, who himself had ties to Epstein and his partner Kane Maxwell, and further contended that Melania was very involved in Epstein's social circle. On Tuesday, Wool addressed this matter in his own words, saying that threading the needle very carefully. In the clip, He recounted how the Daily Beast pulled the content over a letter from Melania's lawyer, James Carville, deleted his own material, which made a similar connection, and other backed away after the topic, entirely under the looming shadow of a billion-dollar litigation. Even Hunter Biden, not exactly a stranger to political controversy, spoke about receiving a similar warning from Melania's lawyers. What this is, Wolf said, is an effort to thwart, stop, frustrate anybody who is out there trying to make the connection. You can't, or you're going to get sued in a way that is going to be incredibly costly burdens that you can't bear. Wolf, a reporter of occasionally dubious repute, but with deep sourcing on Epstein, who interviewed the disgraced financier extensively, framed the legal blitz as a chilling tactic. Whether or not you take him at face value, the effort effect he described is obvious. People are pulling down commentary about the First Lady and Epstein out of fear of facing astronomical legal cost. It's worth stressing here there is no evidence that the claims Melania is fighting against have any merit. If the aim of all of this lawyerly saber-rattling is to keep Melania's name out of the same sentence as Epstein's, then this is paradoxical in a campaign. By threatening a billion-dollar lawsuit, a comically large figure, the First Lady's lawyers have ensured that the story will reach a much larger audience than before. Yet media coverage will now focus less on the underlying claims and more on the lengths to which she will go to shut them up. It's the classic Streisand effect. Melania's lawsuits to silence talk about her Epstein ties are only drawing more attention to hers and Trump's connection. They clearly don't want this discussed, which is why Trump's been throwing out distractions like his DC takeover that instantly backfired as Jen Psaki sharply broke down.
Years ago, conservatives across the country were completely convinced that then President Obama was secretly preparing to impose martial law. It was a wild and crazy conspiracy theory. And that belief was prompted by the fact that 10 years ago today, the U.S. military was a few weeks into a military exercise called Jade Helm. Now, what Jade Helm actually was a pretty standard 8-week military training exercise that happened to take place across Texas, New Mexico, California, and other southwestern states. But because Barack Obama was president, conspiracy theorists seized on the fact that the military was going to be in Texas, again, doing these exercises, as proof that a hostile takeover was planned, that this was all about a hostile takeover. Now, rather than calm that completely unfounded conspiracy, conservatives fanned the flames. Republican Senator Ted Cruz said he understood the reason for concern because, quote, the federal government has not demonstrated itself to be trustworthy in this administration. He was, of course, talking about the Obama administration. Other Republicans insisted that the map of the fictitious exercise be changed so that Texas wasn't labeled as hostile. Again, this was just a military training exercise, something that is quite standard, that all the branches of our military participate in. But Texas's governor at the time, who, believe it or not, was still Greg Abbott, man, that guy's been around doing damage for a long time, ordered the state guard to go monitor the exercise, using taxpayer dollars to send troops to watch the training exercise. That is how hair on fire Republicans were just a decade ago, about the unfounded, very remote, not even real possibility that the President of the United States might be calling the military into American cities. Now fast forward to today. Check out how Republicans are responding to Trump actually sending troops into an American city.
What's happening in D.C., this is easy. President Trump is showing bold and strong leadership.
Hopefully, this is a harbinger of what we see in these liberally run cities across the country. We need to send in the troops, which is exactly what we're doing.
We're going to support this. We're going to support doing this in other cities if it works out in Washington, D.C. I think that this is an experiment that's probably needed in a lot of the Democrat-run cities in America.
Do they even have a belief system? I ask myself often. I mean, Republicans aren't just okay with Trump using the military these days to take over the nation's capital, a city, by the way, where they all spend a fair amount of time as members of Congress, of course. They want this experiment repeated in cities run by Democrats all over the country. That's the whole plan. That's the goal. Meanwhile, the actual residents of the city Trump is trying to take over are definitely not aligned with that viewpoint, and they are pushing back. This was the scene at the intersection of 14th Street and W Street in Washington, D.C. last night. So to give you a sense, this is a neighborhood full of restaurants and bars, and lots of people live there. Bystanders chanted things like, "Get off our streets," "Go home fascists," and "Read the Constitution," at a bizarre mix of federal law enforcement officers and local police who are now under Trump's control. Those officers had set up a checkpoint where for about 2 hours last night, they stopped dozens of cars and detained at least 2 people. Federal agents reportedly stopping cars for things as minor as seatbelt violations and broken taillights. Not sure that's really cracking down on crime. And then asking drivers, of course, about their immigration status, which is probably likely what this is all about. Now, some bystanders reportedly ran into a CVS to quickly make signs, warning others that ICE was ahead and directing drivers to turn left to avoid the checkpoint. You can see one of the signs there they're holding. A group of passengers in a rideshare vehicle rolled down their windows and shouted to the crowd, letting them know the questions law enforcement was asking their driver so that the crowd could then warn others who were coming behind them. Someone else blared Vanilla Ice's classic song, Ice Ice Baby, A+ points for creativity from the sidewalk, while others shouted advice to drivers, encouraging them to ask for badge numbers or remain silent. That was D.C. last night. The people of D.C., which doesn't surprise me, I've lived here a long time, pushing back in practical ways against what Trump is trying to do to the city. All the way on the other side of the country, we also saw something similar. Today was the first day of school for the more than 500,000 children in the LA Unified School District. And in addition to worrying about first day outfits, believe me, that's a thing. I have 2 elementary school kids, it's a thing. And school supplies, students and parents across the city were anxious about something much bigger.
This is the fake tough guy act that Donald Trump is so well known for now. He does not care about crime. He does not care about public safety. There is no underlying policy effort here. Donald Trump just wants to act tough when in fact he is the opposite, and we have to keep calling it out. We're going to on this show, and if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.